I've kept this to myself for almost 10 years, partly because it sounds insane, partly because I don't really want to believe it happened the way I remember. But every now and then, I'll catch myself thinking about her, about the girl on the trail, about how she vanished right in front of me, and how something else might have come back instead. This happened when I was 19, staying with my uncle for the summer in rural Kentucky. He owned about 30 acres of land, mostly open fields and dense woods, with a few old hunting trails weaving through. The kind of place where you could walk for an hour and not hear a single car, only birds and the occasional crack of something moving just out of sight. He lived alone in a creaky 2-story house at the end of a gravel road, and I was there helping him clean the property and do some small repairs. Every morning I'd go for a walk before it got hot, just to clear my head. I usually stuck to the same path, a narrow trail that ran behind his house, through a small patch of forest, and came out by a dried-up creek bed. That's where I saw her the first time. She was maybe 15 or 16, wearing this pale blue dress that looked too thin for the morning chill. Long black hair down her back, barefoot. She was standing at the bend in the trail where the woods thickened, just staring at me. I stopped walking. She didn't say anything, didn't smile, just turned and walked into the trees. I called out, asked if she was okay, if she was lost, but she didn't look back. The weirdest part was how quiet it got, like the whole forest just hushed. No birds, no bugs, nothing. I followed for maybe 20 yards into the trees, but she was gone. No trail, no footprints, just empty woods. I told my uncle later that morning, thinking maybe she was someone from a nearby farm, or some kid wandering where she shouldn't be. He went real still and asked me what color her dress was. When I told him, he just muttered something under his breath and changed the subject. The next morning, I saw her again. Same spot, same dress, only this time she was closer, maybe 20 feet away. Still no expression, still no shoes. And again, she turned and disappeared into the woods. I didn't follow her this time. Something about the way she moved, too smooth, too silent, made my stomach twist. Know how sometimes you just know something isn't right? That gut deep wrongness, that's what I felt. I started having nightmares after that. Always the same one. I'm walking the trail, and I see her standing ahead of me. Only when I get closer, I realize her eyes are all wrong, too wide, too dark, like hollow sockets. And her mouth is hanging open, like she's about to scream, but there's no sound. Just that awful silence. One night, I woke up and swore I saw her standing in the field behind the house, just a silhouette, watching. A few days later, I made the mistake of telling the old guy who ran the local gas station. He just looked at me for a long time and said, "You saw the girl in blue," like it wasn't a surprise, like I wasn't the first. Apparently, years ago, maybe back in the 80s, a teenage girl went missing out there, walked off during a church picnic near the woods, and never came back. They searched the trails for weeks. Dogs, volunteers, the works. Found her shoes near the creek. Never found her. No animals, no signs of struggle, just gone. Her name was Eliza. He told me people still see her sometimes, always on the same trail, always barefoot, always wearing the same pale blue dress. I tried to brush it off, thought maybe it was just a local ghost story. Rural towns love those, but something about the way he said it, dead serious, no grin, no drama, made my skin crawl. I wanted to leave after that, but I'd promised my uncle I'd stay until the end of August, so I stopped walking the trail, stayed inside after dark. I even moved a dresser in front of the window at night, just in case. And then came the worst morning of all. I woke up to banging on the front door, not knocking, banging, like someone slamming their fists over and over. I grabbed the closest thing I could find, a metal lamp, and went to check. When I opened the door, no one was there, but I could see footprints in the dew on the porch. Small, bare, leading up to the door and not away from it. I checked the house top to bottom. Nothing, no one. But when I got back to my room, the window I never opened was unlocked, just a crack. And on the floor by my bed, a small, muddy footprint. I left that same day. I didn't even say goodbye to my uncle, just left him a note, and drove 6 hours back home without stopping. Never set foot on that property again. About a year later, I heard from my uncle. He called me out of nowhere and asked if I ever saw her speak. I said no. He was quiet for a long time, then said, "That's good. If she ever talks to you, it's already too late." I asked what he meant. He hung up. To this day, I still don't understand what happened out there. I've had people tell me it was stress, sleep paralysis, hallucinations. But I know what I saw. I know she was real, or something pretending to be real. And I still have that footprint. I kept the sock I was wearing that day, still stained with whatever she stepped in. No one believes me, but I know what I saw. And I know that girl wasn't just lost. She was looking for someone else to come with her. I grew up on a farm in southern Missouri, where the nearest neighbor was half a mile down a dirt road, and the sky at night was pitch black. No city lights, no cars passing in the distance, just quiet fields and thick old woods behind the property that always felt off. My parents inherited the land from my grandfather. It wasn't a huge operation, just some cornfields, a barn, and a rundown chicken coop we never used. The house itself was small but solid, 2 stories, creaky wood floors, drafty windows. The kind of place where sound travels and silence settles like a weight. When I was about 16, something started happening out there that I've never been able to explain. I've told a few people over the years, and they always say the same thing. Maybe it was a drone or kids messing around. But those answers don't sit right. Not when you've seen what I saw. It started one night in early October. I was out feeding the horses near the edge of the tree line, a little later than usual. The sun had just gone down, and there was still a strip of orange hanging on the horizon. I remember hearing a strange buzzing, like static from an old radio, just faint enough to make me question if I was imagining it. Then I saw the lights. They weren't headlights, not flashlights either. They were orbs, 3 of them, hovering maybe 15 feet off the ground, just beyond the last row of trees. Soft white, no flicker, no beam. They moved slowly, like they were floating on air, weaving between the branches without making a sound. Not a single leaf rustled. I stood there frozen. My first thought was maybe someone had set up equipment or drones out there. But this was our land. No one was supposed to be back there. I went inside, told my dad. He grabbed his rifle and flashlight, and we walked back together. By then, the lights were gone. We didn't talk much about it. He just said, could have been fireflies, but he looked shaken. My dad wasn't the type to get rattled easily. The next night, they came back. I saw them again from my bedroom window, this time further out, deeper in the trees, just drifting, slow and steady. I didn't wake my parents. I just watched. I don't know how long they stayed, but I remember blinking. And suddenly, it was midnight. I must have zoned out. What really started to scare me wasn't just the lights themselves. It was what followed. Animals started acting strange. Our dogs, who usually barked at anything moving within 100 yards, started cowering under the porch at night. The horses were skittish, always pacing, eyes wide. One morning, we found the barn door wide open, even though we kept it padlocked. Then one night, something knocked on my window. I'd fallen asleep with the curtain open, still hoping to catch sight of the lights again. It was just past 2 a.m. when I heard 3 slow knocks, deliberate, spaced out. Not tapping, knocking. My window, S, on the 2nd floor. I sat straight up. My room looks out over the backyard, and the ground below is just dirt and some brush. No trees tall enough, no structures nearby. There's no way someone could have reached it unless they were using a ladder or something. But there was no ladder, and no one there. I told my parents the next morning. My mom started pushing for us to install cameras around the property. My dad just stayed quiet. A few days later, I woke up to find my bedroom light on. I never sleep with it on. I didn't even remember getting up to turn it on. I got out of bed, heart racing, and checked the hallway, dark, quiet, nothing out of place. But something felt wrong, off, like I wasn't alone. That same night, the lights came closer than ever. This time, I saw them in the field, not past the tree line, not floating in the distance. Right there, hovering above the corn, maybe 50 feet from the house. I stood at the window and watched them. No sound, no movement, just glowing, silent orbs floating about 6 feet above the ground. They looked aware, like they were watching back. And then, all 3 blinked out, not slowly, just gone. A second later, every light in the house flickered and died. Power out, total darkness. That was the first time I felt real panic. I sprinted to my parents' room. They were already awake, both sitting up like they'd been pulled out of sleep. My dad had the rifle again. We stayed in the living room with candles lit, staring out the front windows until dawn. The next morning, we found something in the field. 3 perfect circles, each about 10 feet wide. The corn inside was flattened, not crushed, not broken, just bent at the base, almost like it had been pressed down with heat. No tracks, no tire marks, nothing leading in or out. My dad refused to report it, told me we'd just pretend it never happened. Let it be, he said. The lights never came back after that. But sometimes, I still wake up in the middle of the night, convinced someone's outside my window again. I moved out years ago, but my parents still live on the farm. My mom swears the electricity still cuts out randomly at 2 a.m. some nights. My dad won't talk about any of it anymore. He avoids the woods now, keeps all the barn lights on from dusk till dawn. And one day last year, when I was visiting, I asked him straight out if he ever saw those lights again. He didn't answer, just looked at me and said, "You don't always need to understand something to know it's real." This happened 3 years ago, when I was driving back from a family visit in West Virginia. I'd taken the long way home, some rural back highway that cut through endless stretches of woods and farmland. I'd left too late, around 7 p.m., and didn't realize how fast the dark creeps in when there are no streetlights, no towns, no houses, just empty 2-lane road, and the black tree line pressing in on either side. Around 10:30, I noticed my gas gauge was almost empty. I hadn't passed a station in over an hour. My GPS showed nothing nearby. No signal either, just a frozen blue dot on a dead map. That's when I saw the sign. Old and rusted, barely lit, swinging on a chain above a bent metal pole. Last stop gas, 1 mile. I almost didn't believe it. But sure enough, just under a mile later, I saw the place. one flickering overhead light, two old pumps, a tiny, beat-up convenience store with boards over the windows like someone had tried to shut it down, then changed their mind. No other cars, no sounds. The door creaked when I opened it. Inside, it smelled like mildew and dust. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, but half were dead. The shelves were mostly bare, expired snacks, off-brand soda, random junk. No music, no fan, just that humming. At the counter stood a man, maybe in his 60s. Long gray hair, liver-spotted skin, eyes that didn't seem to blink. He didn't greet me, just stood there like he'd been waiting. "Pumps still work?" I asked. He nodded slowly, like it took effort. "Cash only." That gave me pause, but I had a 20 in my wallet, so I handed it over. He took it without a word and dropped it into a register I'm pretty sure wasn't even turned on. I stepped back outside to pump the gas. Hear S when things turned. As I stood there, I got this overwhelming sense that I was being watched. Not from the building, from the woods across the road. I couldn't see anything, but the darkness there felt heavier. Almost thicker, if that makes sense. Like the trees were hiding something just barely out of view. Then I heard it, a crunch of leaves, one single footstep, then nothing. I froze, pump still running, eyes locked on the tree line. I felt that primal terror, the kind that hits your spine before your brain catches up. I wasn't alone out there. I finished pumping and got back in my car faster than I want to admit. But when I looked back at the station, I noticed something strange. There was another man inside. He hadn't been there before. Tall, thin, standing halfway in shadow near the drink cooler. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the man behind the counter. And I swear to God, neither of them was moving, just locked in a dead stare. Something about it made my skin crawl. It felt like I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to, like I'd walked into a moment that had been going on long before I got there, and would keep going long after I left. I turned the key. My engine didn't start. I tried again. Click again. Click. I looked up, and the tall man was now at the window. His face pressed almost flat against the glass, looking out at me. Only it wasn't right. His eyes were too wide, like they didn't know how to blink. His mouth hung open, lips curled unnaturally tight, and his hands, they were too long. Fingers like twigs pressed against the window, bent backward like they had too many joints. I locked my doors. Finally, the engine turned over. I didn't look back as I drove away. Not even when I heard something hit the back of my trunk, a dull, heavy thud, or when I saw a shadow in my rear view that seemed to stretch too far from the shape it came from. I drove 80 miles without stopping. Didn't even realize I was crying until I reached a well-lit gas station off the interstate, and a cashier asked me if I was okay. Here's the kicker. The next day, when I got home, I looked up that station to see if it was real. Last stop gas. Couldn't find anything. No reviews. No maps listing. Nothing. I even retraced my drive a week later in daylight. There was no sign. No pumps. No store. Just an old concrete slab and an overgrown lot. Like whatever had been there had been abandoned for decades. And the weirdest part, on the edge of the lot, near the trees, I found something lying in the grass. A receipt, crumpled, yellowed, dated 3 days after the night I was there. And on the bottom, scrawled in pen, "It watches who watches. I never drove that route again. And I'll never stop for gas in the middle of nowhere again, no matter how low my tank gets."